Time at the tone, 6 o'clock.
Good morning. I'm Navy journalist Christina Parkison in Tokyo with FEN News, compiled from the major American networks and wire services. Well, there's been another hijacking, and we get the details from Brent Bassfield, a spokesman for Northwest Airlines.
Well, Flight 714 left Tampa at 1:32 Eastern Daylight Time en route to Miami, where it was scheduled to arrive at 2:07 p.m. Now, shortly after takeoff, a passenger in a threatening manner demanded that he be taken to Havana. Approximately 15 minutes after the passenger demanded to be taken to Cuba, several other passengers overpowered the suspect, and the aircraft is now returning to Miami. We expect the aircraft to arrive in Miami at 3 p.m. You should know that Northwest Airlines and law enforcement agencies have marshaled every possible resource to assure the safe return of the passengers and the crew.
No one was hurt. Blood tests by Federal Aviation Administration show that several of the people who died in last month's Air Canada jet fire had drunk enough alcohol to possibly hamper their ability to escape. An FAA official, quoted in a copyright story in the Cincinnati Enquirer, says confusion caused by alcohol could have kept them from saving themselves. And a report from Britain says some exhausted pilots dozed off at the helm of a commercial airliner and were jarred awake by an alarm that had warned them that the craft was going just too fast. The report comes from the Royal Air Force Institute of Aviation Medicine, and it was written by one of the pilots who says, "I shudder to think what could have happened." Samantha Smith of Manchester, Maine, left the Soviet Union for home today without ever meeting her host, President Yuri Andropov. But the sixth grader said it really didn't matter. She said an official of the Communist Party delivered a note from the Kremlin leader. In her words, he said he was just very sorry he couldn't meet with me, but he was just too busy, and he wishes me good health and peace. Pope John Paul appealed today in the name of God and humanity to the kidnappers of 15-year-old Emmanuel Orlandi to have pity on a young life and return the girl to her parents. The Pope's appeal came in as Italy waited to hear whether the kidnappers would carry out their threat to kill the girl. The kidnappers' ultimatum for the release of the would-be papal assassin Mehmet Ali Ajad expired, but there was no further word from them. Martial law is coming to an end in Poland. The president of Poland declared today that more than 19 months of martial law will end at midnight Warsaw time. He announced the restoration of civilian rule in a speech before Parliament that was broadcast nationwide today. Earlier, the 460-seat House voted overwhelmingly approval of an amnesty decree that would free hundreds of political prisoners. And in Washington, the government announced the gross national product, the total output of the economy, was up sharply in the second quarter, rising 8.7%. That's clearly good news. NBC correspondent David Rush reports from the White House.
The rise in the GNP was much higher than the government's previously announced flash estimate. President Reagan hailed the report as sending an important signal that confidence in economic recovery continues to build. As for unemployment, the president pointed out that the number of persons holding jobs rose by 1.2 million in the first 6 months of the year, and he declared further improvement is on the horizon.
I have been informed by industrial leaders in the automobile industry of their plans in just the next several weeks for the recall of layoffs.
The president noted that the unemployment rate now stands at 9.8%, down from the double digits of a few months ago. David Rush, NBC News at the White House.
The question of whether Gerald Ford promised Richard Nixon a pardon in exchange for the presidency is raised anew in a published report today. According to the Washington Post, a claim that there was such a deal will be made in an upcoming magazine article. The newspaper says Arthur Seymour Hush writes in Atlantic magazine that Nixon telephoned Ford and demanded a pardon. Nixon reportedly warned that if he didn't get one, he would claim publicly that Ford promised to pardon him in exchange for the presidency. The report says Hirsch's sources were unidentified White House aides. And officials at the National Zoo in Washington are afraid a panda born this morning is dead. At first, they said the cub was healthy, but it appeared to have died a few hours later. A spokeswoman for the zoo says efforts are underway to retrieve the cub. There was some concern because the cub's mother, Ling Ling, was not experienced as a mother. FEN News is compiled from the major American networks and wire services. For further details, read the Pacific Stars and Stripes. I'm Navy journalist Christina Parkison in Tokyo. This is the Far East Network.